Hey guys, welcome back to my channel for an all new episode recap of the Daysofourlives, April 14, 2026. So we start off with Gabby and Ari. So Ari heard the news that Javi's back in town. Gabby was saying that I guess he was busy or back on the job. I don't know what was the reason, but she said, you'll have plenty of time because he's sticking around for good. So she's happy to hear that. So they sit down for a little mom and daughter chit chat, and Gabby tells her that she's actually moving out. So that's news to her. I guess she's on the dorm, so she didn't know that her mom is moving out to be with Philip at his place. So she said, I've used to live there, so I'm just gonna give you a little tip about navigating around there and the butler and all that, right? So she's happy for her mom and Philip, and hopefully everything works out really well for the both of them. And yeah, that was really it. At some point, Ari does meet up with Liam, and Liam just basically chased her away, and she tells Gabby indirectly that boys are just absolute jerks. And she didn't really get into detail who it was. Gabby was assuming that it was Liam, otherwise known as Gage, but she didn't tell him exactly that. So she went on a merry way out of there after she collected the cake from Roman. Now it's Bonnie's book signing, and honestly, Bonnie was getting on my last nerves the whole episode. And first she had the nerve to come in this loud get up. Like, who is dressing Bonnie? Because it is just too tacky and gaudy for me. Honestly, I don't like her style. But anyways, she comes there ready for book signing, and she mentions the plagiarism lawsuit, which Julie didn't know nothing about. And Julie's like, are you sure that this is a good idea for you to be, having the books up here? Because Bonnie, in her little mind, think it's going to be something like Stephanie's book launch, that it would be a huge turnout and all of that she expect. And I'm just saying, Bonnie, you can't compare apples to oranges. And honestly, your book is not it. Like, it's the same title, so no matter how you want to pass it off as, it's gonna be similar topics because it's a romance novel. Come on now, one rainy night and one stormy night versus one rainy afternoon. Come on now, the titles are almost similar. There's no originality there. There's nothing, no pizzazz, nothing. It's the same thing with only slightly different change of words. I don't understand. But anyway, she talks about how Justin's not coming because she doesn't want somebody unsupportive there. And I'm saying he is the opposite of that, because he's trying to prevent you from getting in no bigger mess and it being a whole flop, which is about to be, because it never gave no kind of maximum turnout. She was getting upset and she started blaming Julie about how she could have marketed it more. And Ari came there at some point, and Ari had to tell her that Julie did a great job marketing. And Bonnie was just being snarky and talking about how if Demir just sent their intern of all people, like nobody else showed up. She was about to sign a book to Liam too, and Liam said he doesn't have the cash. He would if he could, but that's just keyword for no, I'm not interested. So Liam did come there earlier, and he apologized for not showing up at their session. And she said, of course you were shot, and how are you feeling and all that. So I get it, I understand. Now moving on, this is where it gets really embarrassing, right? There is an impounder that comes there for Bonnie's books, and basically said, because of the lawsuit, you cannot have your books published here. So it's a whole mess in itself. Now Julie has to end up calling Maggie, who was with Kate, which we'll get into at some point, and she tells her that, look, Bonnie's book signing was a hot mess, and that the impounder came for the books. She had to pack up the books and send them away, and Bonnie is of course upset. Now I was trying to calm her down, but Bonnie ended up leaving. Said she wants something stronger to drink and a ballon bar, blah blah blah. And Julie thanks Liam for doing the heavy lifting, and she could definitely use him around here. So turns out it's not gonna be it's not going to be a cover story. It's actually going to be real, that he's actually going to be working there. And he's like, how am I going to work here if I can't read? So she said, it will help you to strengthen your literacy skills, so I could use your hands. And he said, okay, I'll accept, and I'm glad to be working here with you. Now he goes over to Ari at some point, and he tells Ari, hey, I'm sorry for ignoring your messages. And she said, I guess you were really busy. And he says, not that I just don't want you to be around a guy like me. And she said, isn't that my decision? He said, no, it's not really. It really isn't. So he walks away, and that's how Ari was really upset, and talked to Gabby briefly about it. So Stephanie, remember on yesterday's episode, Stephanie stormed out, leaving Alex there, and she thinks about their recent argument, and she, is blaming herself about how she handled it. Now she sits on the park bench there, or square bench, and Jeremy sees her, and Jeremy can see something's wrong, and he sits over there with her. And she said that, she's trying to make sense of what happened to her, and Alex is being overprotective, and she understands his position, but at the same time she feels like he could back off. She talks to Jeremy about the recent conversation without going into much details, and talking about how she got upset with Alex for just overstepping, and she needed some space. And Jeremy talks about the incident, that he couldn't have gotten through it without her, and she thinks the same way. She thanks him for just not walking away when he found her, and he just said, look, you're anything but a victim. Stop thinking of yourself as that, because you helped me to get through it and dislocate my thumb and all those other things. That's really, pretty badass of you. Now, they're trauma bonding over there, obviously, and they hug at some point. Alex does see them, and Stephanie tries to run to Alex and say, it's not what you think. And Jeremy runs off at this point. He does go home and tells Julie that it was an eventful evening. She didn't want to get into her even, because of course it was a mess. So yeah, that was it with them. Now back to Stephanie and Alex. Alex was like, what's really going on? So she said, Jeremy's trying to help me sort out things, and he said, oh, I'm glad that somebody was able to help you out. Now they go back with that conversation at home. We'll get into that at the end of the recap. Now the girls are fighting, or may I say the guys are fighting, because Kate finally comes after Maggie, called her a billion times to talk about this whole lawsuit thing. And she's like, I finally get your attention. So she said, what's this really about? So she said, why would you do this behind my back? Collude with Xander and, do this to Johnny and, sabotage Bonnie's book and all that, knowing that it was gonna be a legal problem. And she said, look, I didn't do not such thing. I was trying to help, and this is standard operating procedures. We had to do what we had to do, and it just shows that you are not cut out for this job. You're not cutthroat. Basically what Kate is saying, that Maggie doesn't have the business acumen, she doesn't have the cutthroatness to run a company. And they even throw in the fact that, okay, her and Victor were cut of the same cloth and they share a child together. And Maggie's like, you can't expect to compete with me being the love of his life and all of that kind of thing. So they were going back and forth about this whole thing with their common shared relationship with Victor, and it was just going below the belt at some point. Now after the whole phone call with Julie, where she heard about what's going on with the book signing and what happened to Bonnie, and Kay's like, oh well, it is what it is. What is there? Demir had to do what they had to do, and Titan had to do what they had to do. And she was questioning Maggie's loyalty, because it's like, whose side are you really on, right? So Maggie's like, said, I will speak to Xander about this, but if you guys do something, if you do something behind my back again, you're going to be out of a job. We can't be here and not working together, and then this is happening. You're sabotaging somebody that lives under my roof, somebody that was working here. That's not how I conduct business. So Kate was over there just doing the usual Kate face and smirking. I mean, let's see how this whole thing goes. But Maggie operates like she's some mafia boss or something, because she knows she doesn't know how to run a company. I honestly don't think she's fit for it, but she wants to make all these orders and boss people around. I do not care for Maggie like that. So earlier, Alex was at the pub. He was trying to find Stephanie. Stephanie's not there, and he runs into Roman, asks him if he saw Stephanie. He said no, everything okay. So I say yeah, he didn't want to get into it. So he asked if Alex and Stephanie could use some food, and he said no, we cannot impose. And he said, are you kidding me? You guys have been through a lot these past couple of weeks. Let me help you out. So he accepts it. Now at some point Gabby comes over, asks him if he's here for trivia night with Stephanie, because come on now, Gabby, you're tone deaf or something, because they just went through their deal. You think they would be out and about going to no trivia night? Come on now, read the room. Anyways, he said sounds fun, but we'll have to pass. Now she asked if everything is going on right with Stephanie, and he said she's still having a hard time opening up to me and blah blah blah. And Gabby understands because she was once kidnapped, and she can understand the PTSD, but what helps is the support from family and friends, and she's lucky to have you. And he said, I don't know about that. She said, come on, Alex, you're always normally confident, like it's really weird to see you like this. So he said, it's hard to be this way, especially when you have something to lose. And she said, look, like you guys will work it out, and she wishes him the best. He collects the food from Roman. He also did apologize to Roman about what's been happening to Johnny and the mayor, and it wasn't his fault. That he knows that Kate was really a part of it, and it's really awkward position to be in. And of course Roman don't want to talk about it at all. But yeah, that was really it with him. So back at the apartment with Alex and Stephanie can tell that Alex is upset. He has been quiet the whole ride back. So he said, I'm not really upset. I'm envious of Jeremy because he's able to do something that I cannot do, get through to you. So she doesn't want to talk about it at all. She just feels tired and wants to go to bed. And he's like, really, Stephanie, like there's food here. She said, I can skip a night. So he's like, come on, you need to talk to me. Like, just know that I'm here for you, and you are the only thing that matters that much in the world to me. Like, open up to me. Just know that I love you. And she said, I love you too. So she ends up going back to the bedroom, and Alex is just out there on the couch, just pondering to himself. But let me tell you this. Honestly, the way how Stephanie acting, I get some parts, but I don't get the other parts. And she's pushing him away. And that's going to make him feel like he's less of a man. Like, a man's job is to protect their partner. And if he's not doing that, he's just feeling inadequate. And I don't think she understands that. I guess she's going through a PTSD and she needs to get therapy or whatever. And I get Alex didn't need to overindulge or talk to a lot of people. But at the same time, let me call her out on that. Like, for one thing, you're calling him out on talking to other people about you guys' personal business, but you're out there talking to Jeremy. I get you guys understand what you guys went through because you both were in the situation, but aren't you talking to somebody else too? Anyways, I might be wrong, but yeah, like, I don't get it. So this is just going to be even worse because their relationship is now strained. Imagine when Joy and the baby come back soon. It's going to be donezo for the two of them. And then maybe Stephanie going to go off with Jeremy. Who wants to tell? I don't mind them being together. Like the chemistry that they both have. And maybe this is for the best. But I didn't like how they both were saying, I couldn't have gotten through this without you. Couldn't have gone through with anybody else but you. Oh, trauma bonding. But anyways, guys, comment below and let me know what you guys think. Don't forget to like, follow, subscribe to my channel. I will see you guys tomorrow.